Wrestling fans, what's happening? Welcome back to the Four Podmen, the wrestling podcast we bring you every week on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Head over to YouTube, suplex that subscribe button, super kick that bell notification, and as always, support Irish podcasting. And as you can imagine, tonight I'm filling in for our host, Dean Kelly. So I'm going to be hosting the show, The Shopkeeper. And joining us as the add-on is Dean Fitzpatrick to complete the Four Podmen this week. And on the show this week, we're going to be covering a review of the Elimination Chamber. We're going to be having a look back at the Undertaker on Joe Rogan calling the current crop of wrestlers or superstars soft. We're also going to be taking a look at news that broke this week that Mr. Paul Wight, other known to you fans out there as the Big Show, has gone all elite. But joining me this week, as always, my partners in crime, Joe, who always brings the beef, Dogg, and Jay, the road, D-O-double-G, Dogg, my partner, the hot tag, and also Dean Fitz, also joining us this week on the Four Podmen. So, lads, where do we begin? Let's talk about Paul Wight, or we're going to call him the Big Show because we're WWE fans. Jay, what was your thinking on this when this news broke yesterday?
Well, I had to sit down because of the shock. My world was whipped out from under me. I felt like, how is this even news? I could not give any less of a fuck about this. It must be a slow day in the world of professional wrestling when a man who only has a job simply because he landed at 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 6'14" feet, jumping to AEW. AE so fucking what? AE who fucking cares? AEWCW. They can have 10 Paul Wights if they want. It's never going to affect my Rey Mysterio while he was still on the gurney and threw him into the corner. Or was that Brock Lesnar? I don't know. I get confused. To drink.
I think that was Batista, wasn't it? As far as I know, wasn't it? Not too sure.
No, Brock came in with the same.
Brock, yeah, bro. Brock Batista then copied him. Yeah.
Big man, they're all the same. If you want to see wrestling, watch a vanilla midget, you know.
Yeah, the reaction yesterday on social media was a sort of a mixture of shock and also this is huge and also who cares. So there was a very mixed reaction to it. Joe, what was your take on it?
Well, I was shocked because I thought he was a WWE lifer. I don't really care that much because I don't think he's going to do much for AEW. Like, he's way, way past his best, and his best was never fantastic. So I but as I said, I was shocked because I was sure he was a WWE man through and through. Yeah. But Khan must have offered him some big bucks to jump ship. Fair play to him. If he's making big bucks, you can't blame a man for doing it.
He must have got offered that Jericho NFL money, did he? Apparently. Dean, what was your take on it when you heard it?
I'm in the who gives a fuck section. I forgot he was even at the WWE anymore, to be honest. Since that night where Orton bullied him into submission there backstage, the Legends night, like I think that that's the rumor, isn't it? That after that night that he kind of had enough and he wanted out. Who really gives a fuck? Like, you know what I mean? It's one last payday. He'd go off and do a bit of commentary. We have a little feud with fucking, I don't know, could see him with Jericho again, probably in a circle, putting out with Wardlow or something for a few weeks, and probably have a big match WrestleMania weekend against Shaq. And yeah, who gives a fuck really?
Well, the talk yesterday was that he's going to be commentating on a new YouTube show that they're doing. I can't think of a bigger fall from grace to leave WWE in the position he was in with that legacy to go and comment
on YouTube for Dynamo's dozen and fucking Big Show. There's no room. This place ain't big enough for the two of us.
Well, some fans would say he's only half the man he once was. I'm just putting that out there, But yeah, it was.
We're all gonna get. Yeah, we're all going to get drawn through the coals if the boss has got him on line for an interview for the dozen in the next 6 weeks, aren't we? We'll have to do a Big Show.
Yeah, maybe Ian's off this week. Maybe we're going to find out that Ian's gone all elite. Who knows? They seem to be signing everyone at the moment, you know. But yeah, so let's move on from that anyway. That huge piece of news yesterday from AEW. Joe, Undertaker on the Joe Rogan podcast a week or two ago dropped a kind of a clickbait semi sort of bombshell kind of by calling out that the current crop of stars and roster are soft. And he mentioned certain things like back in his day, which to me was only 12 months ago, but back in his day, he used to go around with a bag with a gun and a knife in it, and which is clearly illegal these days, but however. What was your take on that when you first heard it?
I personally wasn't impressed. I think anyone that puts their body on the line night after night to entertain people is, can't be perceived as soft, personally. The whole carrying a knife and a gun thing, you couldn't do it nowadays anyway, because all the security at airports and all that kind of crack. It's not happening. Like, I think he's, everyone, when we always say back in my day things were better. That's because we were younger. It has nothing to do with that things were actually better. It's just that we weren't fucking sore all the time and pissed off.
Yeah,
what's happening in the
cans
world.
of Coke weren't bigger. You were holding them in half the fucking hand, you bleeding imbecile.
Yeah, that kind of shit. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think he's reflecting on a bygone era of when he was a young man and everything. The business was really exciting to him. He was meeting all these heroes and all this, heroes of his. And I as I said, I think anyone that beats the shit out of themselves to entertain other people, I don't think you can call them so.
Yeah, I kind of go ahead, Jay.
I honestly, I think he's still in work. I still, personally, in my view, the first thing I thought immediately when he said those things was, one, what are you fucking talking about, pal? Half your friends are dead from drug use. Is that soft or is that hard? In my day, men were men. Well, you know what? They're all the same in the box in the ground where they're fucking buried. Bless them, bless their souls. They all died for a business they grew up in. They were fucking hazed, bullied. We've heard all of this shit. They weren't too nice to each other. Two, they had some fucking extreme views on the treatment of females. Three, you did half the wrestling over, the span of your lifetime as the kids do in one match. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, the business has moved on. Now you have to put on a show that almost kills you every bleeding night to entertain. It's got to the stage where we've raised the bar that high. Four, there's a part of me that thinks he's so business, instead of being able to leave his boots in the ring the way he wanted to in front of a full crowd, calling out the current roster is his way of saying, right now, I've been seen as this locker room general and leader for so long. I'm retired. This is my final offering to you as a working man. Somebody take the bullshit I just spouted out in media in front of the world, and Joe Rogan being the most viewed, I suppose, entertainment pundit out there. I think he laid it out there for somebody to grab, for somebody from the locker room to take hold and say, hang on, Taker, half of the fucking Hall of Fame are dead because of this tough, hard life you've lived. We might be soft because we choose to plug in a fucking Xbox or a PlayStation instead of, do 17 different kinds of drugs and nearly die 4 times in one night in a room full of fucking hookers for, a paycheck a quarter the size of the one you and all your boys are earning. But at the end of the day, we're still all going to see 65 in a retirement. Most of your mates didn't, and these are the men you're talking about. I'm sure they'd disagree with you. I'm sure they'd like to live a soft life and still be alive and hold their children. But however,
Yeah, it was a strange decision as well going on Rogan. When you look back at the Rogan podcast, I can remember one with Tony Hinchcliffe went on it. Tony was touted WWE wanted to sign him as a writer, and he wouldn't move to Connecticut, so the deal didn't go through. And Tony was on the same show. Tony would be a big wrestling fan, but Rogan has for years berated wrestling and laughed his ass off at it. And
yes,
when I remember them doing an episode covering at the time when the Undertaker had dropped the streak, and Tony Hinchcliffe was saying this is monumental, this is earthquake shattering in the world of wrestling. And Rogan was falling around laughing, just berating the whole thing, saying, "Stop this now, you big child," and all this. And now there was a few whiskeys had no doubt, but still, it was kind of it was kind of weird that then suddenly they were across the table from each other and they were having a conversation about, you know, how back in the day men were men and all this kind of thing. The one thing I would say, before I pass over to Dean for his comments is, what you see in there in WWE is not necessarily the softness or the strength of the person, as seen in, like, if you look at NXT that we reviewed there on the dozen a week or so ago, I mean, there was nothing soft about all the workers on that pay-per-view. And the Rumble, I wouldn't have thought of anyone being soft on that either. It was a very good Rumble that we also reviewed. But also, when you see these men, when they leave WWE, we know WWE does a certain amount of manufacturing to it in terms of, these guys are like 100% control these days, between promos all the way through the ring work. But when these boys leave and go out on the independent scene, when you see the likes of, you know, Dustin Rhodes and Cody Rhodes and the work that they're putting in, there's nothing soft about their work whatsoever. And even Drew, if you look at Drew McIntyre, who was champion up till the chamber there, I mean, he went back out on the independent scene when WWE released him, and he had to gain his stripes again and put in a lot of hard work up and down the UK and around Europe. To get back in there, to be given that chance again after being originally touted as the chosen one. So, like, I wouldn't say there's a softness to these guys. It was really out of context, really. Dane, what did you think when you seen
it? I agree with Ian. I 90% I think is to keep himself in the spotlight. You know, how long was he in the wrestling industry for, and then to just completely shut off. And one of the biggest platforms out there is Joe Rogan. I think he knew saying that he was going to piss off the people, but he didn't criticize Vince. At the end of the day, is the yes or no man in all of this. He didn't dare criticize Vince, because he knew if he criticized Vince, he was pissing on his own grave. Do think it was to keep himself in the limelight. Like, he talks about, like, back in his day, it was all crusty old men and knives and guns and drugs and all. There's a lot of wrestlers nowadays still have drug problems. It's like, you know what I mean? It's just well covered up, stuff like that. Like, the knife and guns thing, you can't picture, say, Dolph Ziggler walking through an airport now with a Magnum or a fucking machete in his bag. The guys back then, like, were pretty hardcore. They were pretty extreme. Now look at this guy. The guys nowadays, like, back then it was more extreme, it was more hardcore, it was like wrestling is wrestling. Nowadays it's more commercialized, it's a brand, if you get me.
Yeah.
They have to call out the different types of fans. Like, how many genders are there nowadays? You know what I mean? It's like, how many different wrestling fans is there nowadays? You've got the kids, you've got the hardcore fans, you've got the, like I said, you know what I mean, who've like grown up with wrestling, and we've never, even though we've got older and more mature, the wrestling never shied away. Do you know what I mean? If you get me, like, he's talking about I had to laugh at the knife and gun thing. Like, this is Bruiser Brody got killed because of this. You know what I mean? Like, is that he still wishes that people were carrying guns and knives around? Bruiser Brody got stabbed 7 or 8 times in the chest in the fucking locker room, and lads thought it was a work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, like,
we've also just come out of fucking PG area. What do you want me to do as a mid-carder? Bring a Mac 10 to work with me? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here, look at this, guys. Look what I do. I do think he threw that out there. You've seen a couple of the responses from Drew, from
Xavier
and all. I do think he's clutching at straws that hopefully someone's going to take a bit of heat with this. And if Vince gave him the right money to turn around that Mania with the fans back in the stadium, he's going to be there. I think so, personally.
Do you know something? I was thinking before the podcast yesterday, when I was having a look and getting my thoughts together on it, you know, it wouldn't be surprised me if we get a flash up saying Undertaker is all elite. It just wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. You know what I mean? It's just
with the Big Show.
Yeah, but you know
they
what I
do
mean?
have a bonus for retired giants. You get what you pay for.
It's like that home where Happy Gilmore's granny is staying. Let's just not go to AEW.
Just imagine going from a boneyard match and becoming a commentator at a YouTube show at All Elite or something like that potentially. You know what I mean? Only because the green is thicker on that side. You know what I mean? It's just
obviously he can't stay with the Undertaker gimmick, so he comes back with the fucking shaved head, the sideburns, and a white suit. The complete opposite of the WWE.
Mordecai comes back as Mordecai.
Hey, there's like does nobody else think that it's just an extension? Like we continually say that.
I love that slow motion gimmick he's doing there.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Kayfabe killed the curtain call, but we've seen it 1,000 times. But yeah, I just believe it's an extension. A platform of cross-platform. I mean, we're only after that fucking documentary.
Yeah, it's no, it's just
That's me then.
Yeah, it's kind of it was certainly a weird one, you know. I mean, a lot of people came out and, you know, it's weird. It's amazing the respect he still carries in the business, because a lot of lads came out and said, well, we weren't happy with what he said, but heck, it's the Undertaker, you know what I mean? I'd be kind of going, you know, if you're talking about me, fuck you. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm putting in the graft, I'm putting in the days, I'm putting in the travel. I'm the guy who caught you when you jumped too high. I was that camera guy. You know what I mean? You know, these are the things that these guys forget, you know what I mean? And like,
but there's still the risk they'll run into him on a Legends night.
Yeah, and you know something? Who knows? You know, these guys, someone might have an axe to grind one day when they do meet him at a rifle convention or something like that, you know? But it just seems... Well, he promotes some rifle shops, I think, around the US and all, and he does like shooting conventions and stuff like that also. So hence why he wants everyone to, you know, you should have a gun and a knife in your bag, you know.
You should set up a new stable, the Gun Club, and go after the Bullet Club. Just going around fucking Uzis. What's up, motherfuckers?
Can you imagine?
Fuck's sake.
Anyway.
Sorry.
Guys,
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Just on what Dean and Jay were saying, I think they do have a point. I think it could be Taker just trying to keep his foot in the door as well and stay relevant among the current roster and make sure that he's not too far from people's lips at the same time, you know.
Definitely.
Yeah, it certainly stank at that.
No, I think
Go ahead, Jake.
For me, it feels just too much like a work. I mean, this is a man who was ringside at fucking UFC with Brock Lesnar. Now he's sitting across from the commentator for the UFC, a man who had nothing but total disdain and disrespect for the whole work until this fucking merger of cross talent started happening. The Ronda Rousey and WWE and Conor McGregor fucking one day going over. You know what I mean? It all smacks of kind of like inter-promotional shoe. I mean, he didn't say any of this shit on fucking Stone Cold Steve Austin. He sat there sipping his fucking Undertaker wine. Do you know, where was his gun and his knife when he was sipping out of his fucking Merlot? Do you know what I mean? I'm not sure too many of the old schoolers would have had too much respect for that.
Maybe he felt by sipping the wine on the Awesome podcast, it felt like the Last Supper. Or something like that, was it?
Yeah, nothing controversial to say to Stone Cold about his former employer, you know, or the current roster, you know. And I wouldn't mind there's not a knee between them because of how they worked for fucking 25 years.
Very good. Right, so let's
fucking Crutch Club.
Jesus. Right, let's get on. Let's move on to the business end of the episode. Then let's talk Elimination Chamber. WWE coming off the back of a very strong Royal Rumble in that pay-per-view. I think we reviewed it and we thought it was really good. And then they had a very strong NXT pay-per-view, the Vengeance Day one. So we moved on to the Elimination Chamber with the hope that it would deliver as much as the previous two. Probably not as much as NXT, but Joe, take us away there with your thoughts. on the SmackDown Chamber match that kicked off the pay-per-view? Joe?
Yeah, entertaining enough. Nothing terribly exciting, you know what I mean? But it was solid. It was an absolutely solid match. The best thing about it was Sami Zayn and all in the pod, and he was shouting at Corey Graves, this all this kind of crack. And when it was picking up who was going to come out next, and he was just there, not mine, not mine, not mine, not mine, not mine. Yeah. I mean, I thought he was incredibly entertaining.
It's like it's me terribly a Daffy Duck. Do you remember when Daffy was always a whiz ass who was breaking the fourth wall when Elmer was hunting bugs and him? You know what I mean? There's something very Daffy Duck about Sami Zayn to me. I love it. I love it.
He's so good on the mic. He's so good on the mic. But that night where fuck everybody. It's all about Sami Zayn. He's so good on the mic. He just plays that great gimmick, doesn't he?
Yeah. I don't know. I looked at that SmackDown Chamber match, and I thought it was really solid. It felt to me like it was a real Ring of Honor show, like a Ring of Honor Chamber match. You know what I mean? There was a lot of real solid talent in there from a wrestling point of view. But I think like Corbin was kind of a weird one in there, wasn't it? Like, because you had all this kind of talent, and then you had him sort of sticking out like a sore thumb. And it was weird because like the way the Chamber started out, it started out like a nice solid wrestling match. There was a lot of wrestling in the actual ring without having to resort to going to the actual gimmick of the Chamber. And then Corbin comes out and straight away just puts that to bed and starts lashing lads out of it all around the Chamber. So it was kind of weird that kind of way. But
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
No, just I personally think Corbin gets a raw deal. I think he's good at what he does. You know, that's what he was there to do. He was there to throw lads around the place and be a big dickish heel, and that's exactly what he did. And I think he does it really well. I think he gets a raw deal from people, personally.
Yeah.
Why don't you marry him?
You wear his fucking t-shirt then.
We'll have to get Joe a crown and a King Corbin t-shirt.
I tend to agree. I think he plays the character very well. It's like we said before, whenever you need somebody who the crowd just flat out dislikes, he's just very good at being disliked and dislikable, and you can't be behind everybody. Somebody's got to fucking lose, you know?
Yeah, the one thing I did like about this Chamber was, and we'll discuss it more when we get on to the second Chamber match. In this match, there was a very clear distinction between heels and baby faces. So you were very easily able to work out in the match, you know, compared to the second match, which we'll get on to later. Like it was very clear who the heels and the baby faces were, and they kind of worked that way, you know what I mean? Even so far as Sami Zayn trying to get Kevin Owens on board with him when he came out, and Kevin Owens having none of it, Owens sending him flying type of thing, you know what I mean? So it was very clear that, you know, there wasn't going to be a whole lot of shenanigans in the match or that kind of pairing up kind of crap. It was like every man for himself and very clear in how they worked. What was the feel? I mean, you know, Daniel Bryan kind of wins the Chamber, and then he's lying in a heap in the ring, and then, you know, straight away they bring out the Roman Reigns match. Dan, what was your thinking on that? I mean, it's just.
I think it was just a case of just trying to fit Roman Reigns in for me. It was kind of like Asuka, you know what I mean? It was kind of a pointless segment. What's he going out and proving? Absolutely nothing. Daniel Bryan is almost dead in the ring, literally, and he comes out and just finishes him off. Like, why not bring him out as the main event or something like that? Like, it was just seen as pointless. It was just get Roman in the ring, get the pin, have a little spotlight moment there with that. But like, yeah, I don't know. It was just it seemed a bit kind of, well, we need to get him in somewhere, so let's just fuck him in now. But I just thought they could have these matches where someone gets absolutely annihilated. Like, there's no way he wasn't going to win anyway, was he, Daniel Bryan? He wasn't going to get anywhere near the title like on that night. So I don't know. I was just scratching my head and I'm thinking, what? Like, I don't see it over the years. You see these matches where the winner of this match gets a title shot or what have you. I just see it as fucking pointless. Yeah, I don't know. It was just something fucking stupid to throw in at the end of it, I think.
What do you think, Joe? I mean, obviously, Reigns put a number on him, but I was thinking from an old school point of view, why didn't they have that later on in the card? And what they could have done is they could have had Heyman out at the end of the chamber who'd pull a promo on Daniel Bryan saying, we're going to see you later on in the night, the old way of doing it. And then you could have done a vignette as well with Daniel Bryan backstage getting patched up, they could have wrapped the ribs or they could have done something, to pass it off. To make it more sort of meaningful rather than let's go out and just pulverize. It was like he was pulverizing.
Sell a harder underdog narrative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Actually,
trying to heal Daniel.
Yeah, and then you had. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just like as you said there, it's the it's cheap heat. It was to make Roman Reigns look like a bigger heel and all this kind of crack. But I'm with Dean. Like, I think they should have maybe had it before the last chamber match or something. Just had even just a small break, and as you said, have a bit of a backstage bit where they're wrapping his knee and you can't compete like that. But it's for the world title. They have to they, as Jay said, like, push the underdog part, like.
Yeah.
But, they could have even worked in some of their own story outside the Bryan. It felt to me like they were trying to wrap up the Daniel Bryan segment in, like, I mean, that felt more like a gauntlet match with him having to do a championship match after an elimination chamber match. That's him versus 7 fucking people in one night in 40 minutes. That's a gauntlet. That's not an elimination chamber. If they had pulled him out of the ring, now what I would have done was send Roman down. Get some super heel heat on Roman if that's what you want. Get him in the ring, smash up Daniel a little bit, and then fucking Adam Pearce run down. No, you're the champ. It needs to be better than this. You give him his rest boy. At the very least, he should have half an hour to get back there, have a cold drink, fucking get dressed, get ready for battle again. This is too far, too much. You're not running shoehorn or rough riding over this whole fucking federation. You're not the kingpin. You're not the linchpin. I'm the executive. Get the fuck off him. And then have, after a savage beatdown, 2 or 3 people help Daniel up. Even some other baby faces come down, run out and tear them off him, and make Roman a bigger heel by creating. Do you remember the old run-ins where you used to see good guys legging it down to fucking pull what was wrong off, like break it up? Do it that way. Super sell some of your baby faces you're not using on the card, have them in their wrestling gear, get them to run down, pull the yes movement man out, get him back to the locker room, create scandal at the fucking mic. What did we just see? What has just happened? There's a divide here. You've got the executive, you've got the general manager, and you've got Roman Reigns. Who is in charge of the whole brand? Who's in charge of the production? And have Roman just stare Pierce down on, get in my business again, and I'll fuck you up. Yeah. And then send them both to the back, and then let the show progress like we just seen something very controversial. Let Daniel take his fucking 30 minutes, get him wrapped up, send him down like the wounded dog, even tease a little bit more of a match, maybe 2 or 3 minutes of broke up, fucked up offense, and then just have the smash mouth fucking Roman go over. It would have made more sense in the bigger picture. It would have made sense on the card. We wouldn't have to suffer so many interim gaps. Would have meant you waited for 30 minutes going, I wonder how this is going to go. Because obviously we didn't know what was going to happen later on in the card. So it just would add a little bit more mystery and dimension and a little bit maybe more intrigue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even 40 minutes.
And like, and it's not like they were under time constraints. The whole thing was only 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And pay-per-views usually and with WWE sometimes even a lot more. So they could have easily, heel comes down, finishes in 2 minutes, done. I think Jay was very at a great point there, because Pierce had turned up earlier in the night to kick a fella out. What's his name? Amos.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, he came down to kick him out. So why not come down again and go, no, Roman, this isn't how it works. As Jay said, I'm the boss here, not you. Way. And let Roman bait the piss. Yeah, no problem. Roman bait the piss out and get his heat and all that kind of crack. But then have the match.
Let him have a go.
Yeah, it just sort of, it seemed like it was a lot of hard work just to set up for an edge spear, really, didn't it?
Which once again could have happened later. It didn't happen. Didn't have to happen there.
Yeah.
You know, none of it had to happen there. And also, I called Edge Roman at WrestleMania, so
I think it was going to be a fairly obvious one anyway.
when you lads were fantasy booking, and I just said it'll be Roman Reigns. And you weren't impressed with me either when I said that.
Joe, just remember, we haven't got there yet. There's still plenty of time between now and WrestleMania.
True.
So
yes.
yeah. I have to say, I did like when Roman went for the spear. I did like the transition into the yes lock. I thought that looked really, really.
That was
good.
lovely.
Yeah, it looked really well. But what didn't do Brian any justice was then Roman just basically peeled his hands off him like it was nothing, and then bet the piss out of him, which sort of means leaves the yes lock a little bit sort of weak. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So then we move on to a guy I'm really liking at the moment. I'm liking Bobby Lashley with MVP at the moment. This United States match versus John Morrison versus Riddle. Joe, what was your take on this?
Once again, solid. Three really, really good guys in there, doing their thing. I've liked Lashley for a very long time. I think he's very, very, very good. I think WWE missed a big trick when they brought him back initially, because Lesnar was world champion. There's genuine animosity between him and Lashley. Two legit heavyweight MMA fighters. You know what I mean? Like they should have pushed that, but they chickened out. But anyway, sorry, I'll get back to what we were talking about. So yeah, Riddle. When did Riddle lose? When did Riddle lose his first name, by the way?
The day he lost his shoes, probably.
Yeah.
I would assume they tried to trademark Matt Riddle, and it didn't work, so they went for Riddle, and then they pinned that on him.
Maybe. But no, like Riddle, as we know, is brilliant. Morrison has been fantastic for God knows how long. I don't know why WWE got rid of him in the first place. And as I said, Lashley, I'm a big admirer of his. As I said, solid match. Once again, but as I've said plenty of times before, do the simple things right, and you're going to have a good bloody match. And that's exactly what it was. The three lads went in, did what they needed to do, and MVP did his stuff on the outside too. And I quite enjoyed that match, to be honest.
Yeah, the only thing I thought was quite weak, Jay, I don't know if you picked up it, was when Morrison went to grab the crutch off MVP. It was like a little schoolyard kid snatch, as opposed to he should have probably laid MVP down by taking the crutch off him, old school. But it looked like it was a real sort of, the way like someone would grab a bag of sweets out of your hand in the schoolyard or something like that,
If he wanted to be old school, he'd have pulled a knife or a gun out of his gym bag. Get a lot more with a 45 than you will with a piece of aluminium.
It just takes the crutch apart, and it is a gun.
The other thing I thought at the end of this match was, and when I looked at the end of the pay-per-view, I thought I got it right.
It's a gun knife.
No, but normally when someone drops a US belt like that, normally does a payoff for you at the far end of the pay-per-view. And we'll get onto that later on, but it obviously didn't happen. So yeah, solid match. Go ahead, Joe.
They just held it off till the night after, Niall. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They got the payoff on Raw instead. That's all.
I think they gave it to the wrong man. One, because I fucking hate Riddle. It upsets me looking at him. He doesn't have enough clothes on. He looks like he stepped out of the shower and into a ring. And I'm sorry, that's a little bit past the line of dignity. That's where I do wish sometimes where more professional wrestlers carry the gun. Do you know what I mean? And got upset with Riddle and made him stop. But
and Riddle,
I wonder will he be taken serious? Every segment is backstage stoned out of his face. Like, you're gonna give him the belt, you have to, like, are people gonna take him serious now instead of all these fucking going around, bro. Want a space cake? Want to get fucking high from me,
bro? Crawl back into Wayne's World, you piece of shit.
But the one thing about that match, even though Lashley lost it, it made him, he was still the dominant force at the end of it. You know what I mean? It's building to the bigger picture.
I do like the added rage on him.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved when Morrissey hit the Starship Pain and he kicked out of the pin. And MVP was just like, you really thought you were going to beat him with that? No. They just laughed in his face.
Yeah, MVP is he's evolving into quite a character in relation to that whole Hurt business, isn't it? It's really kind of they've
it's
found their
brilliant.
place, really. Yeah.
What I love about it is the charisma and the unity between them has been very organic. It's all been accidental. It's been men standing beside each other in a card or in a position where other men were doing better than them, and they all kind of just came together, and there was this synergy between them. It's like, well, do you know what? We already have this comedy lampoon faction over here, fucking New Day. Let's just be badass. Let's just be a bunch of fucking Steve Austins and get shit done in a hurtful and hard way. Even the name is brilliant. And even the ring gear, the gold and black on Lashley. The man is built and looks like a consummate professional champion. Always has. He was wasted twice before in that company, and third time lucky. They fucking hit pay dirt with him. And I don't know whether that's because he's from a generation that kind of learned directly off the men that Undertaker fantasizes about. And he's gone away 3 times. We talk about this. Actually, there's 2 men in that ring that night. Morrison was sent away because his attitude was terrible, and he went off and he learned how to work professionally and properly, and he's come back with a new vigor. I mean, he was always a brilliant pro wrestler, but obviously his backstage shit left a lot to be desired. Now we're seeing a professional out of him. Same with fucking Lashley. He's a champ all day long. You look at that guy and you say, there's not enough gold on you. Who's going to beat you? You know? I think my choice wouldn't have been Riddle, though. Obviously, somebody's hot on him because they dropped the first name off him, and now he's Johnny Underwear. I would have given it to the other fella, and what I would have done from a booking perspective, what we know about the card, I don't want to get into it too far, but if you had 2 men who are best mates backstage and one is holding a lesser title, I think it could have made for a lot of slight kind of, you know what I mean? I can't believe I'm the US champ. Neither can I. I wouldn't wear that piece of shit. Look at my belt. Do you know what I mean? It could have made for some great comedy segments.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
I didn't think that Riddle would get the win in the pre-show match. I thought Mustafa Ali would have got the win. I actually thought when I heard that Keith Lee was out, I thought Mustafa Ali would have picked up the US title, and he could have had a little run with probably fucking Ricochet up till Mania. Because that'd be a fantastic match at Mania, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? There's bigger fish to fry. But yeah, I agree with Jay. Like Riddle, like no one takes him serious whatsoever. So I don't know. I'll see where that goes, mate. I can't see him keeping that belt longer than 3 or 4 weeks, to be honest.
Well, I suppose maybe putting the US belt on him may gain some of that traction for people to take him a bit more serious, maybe. But it's the presentation is going to where it falls down a bit, really, isn't it? That's probably what they need to work on, really, more than anything.
We're just going to have to listen to this. We're just going to have to listen to this imbecile some more extra now for the next few fucking months. Like, he's just, why won't you shut up, Riddle? Why won't you be a Riddle and go away?
Best thing for that, Jay, is to get stoned, and then you're probably on the same level as him. So everything you'd say is funny then.
I can neither confirm or deny the rumors you've heard about me, which are predominantly true.
I don't know why you have so much hate for it. I think Riddle's brilliant, but I think
we have always.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point, Niall, about it, that it's a lot to do with the presentation of him, rather than the guy himself. Because he's fucking legit, man. Like, you know what I mean? He had a decent MMA career, and you know what I mean. He's and he can go in the ring. As I said, I think it might be the presentation that people aren't liking. I don't mind it so much.
I don't dislike him. He is a very good wrestler. I've seen him on the indie shows. He is a very good wrestler. It's just the way they've personified him up till now is they just no one takes him serious. So hopefully I'd like to see where this goes for him. But as I said, I can't see it lasting too long. And then he just goes back to being the funny gimmick backstage.
Crossed.
He's the guy that walks into the bar, doesn't he? And everyone goes, "Oh, not tonight." That going away.
You know what he is? He's a 5-minute friend. 5 minutes is plenty enough once a year. Do you know what I mean? Is he your mate? Yeah, he is, yeah. But I mean, I don't know him. So, okay. We do a shot every 6 months or something. He's grand. Like, just don't talk to him or don't let him know where you live,
Yeah.
No shoes or anything,
He's the friend request that hovers around for a while, isn't he?
He keeps talking to let you know he's there.
Yeah. Keeps on resending the friend request. Yeah. So let's move on then. Let's discuss the women's tag match. Niall, Jax, and Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. I was thinking this. I seen the pre-interview segment, and Bianca Belair just came across as a huge Sasha Banks fan. Really, she was like the sort of bolt-on, really, like the best friends club type of thing. Then they went out to the match. What was your thinking on the match? I know it's so difficult for these girls working with Nia Jax, isn't it?
I was just about to say that, like, you had 3 really good wrestlers in there, and it was solid enough. You know what I mean? Once again, they did all the simple things right. The only big problem with it was the finish, with Jax missing that clothesline and kind of bopping her on the head as she ran past her, and then a Samoan drop where it looked like she actually slipped as she was doing it. To finish it. That was pretty weak. But up to that, it was solid enough, like, you know what I mean? But as I said, with three out of the 4 being really good, you're going to, you just kind of keep the other one out of it as much as possible. But she did her part too. I'm being harsh there. She did her part too. She went in, she threw people around a bit and did what she needed to do. But it was grand. It was a fine match. It really was.
I found the whole the bottle thing towards the finish was kind of weird, and insofar as, like, Sasha had presented herself as the baby face along with Bianca Belair, and then this guy was coming out to hand her the foreign object, and she's refusing it, and then it causes the whole thing to unravel, really. You know what I mean? It was just a kind of a weird sort of, whatever agent went through it or something like that. I mean, I can't really take to your man at all, really, who's hanging around with him. He seems just kind of
Reginald.
Yeah, he seems kind of well out of place or something like that. I don't think the girls need him. I think they're talented enough within their own rights. They don't kind of need that kind of thing. Just go out and have a solid tag match. What was your thinking on it, Jack?
Yeah, no, we fast forwarded that because Nia Jax was in it. I'm not having any of that anymore. I've got time's too precious in this life. The closer I get to the grave, the less I want to watch shite, and I'm not having any of that anymore. I will say this though. Usually I have no problem with watching a Sasha Banks match. I think she's brilliant. I do. I think she's got an awful lot of persona. She's got charisma. The camera eats her up. I do like what you call the other girl with the long
Bianca Belair.
Bianca. Yeah, I wouldn't have seen too much of her, mind you, but I do like her. I do like her personality. She doesn't fucking bug the shit out of me. What bothers me is why won't anybody tie her hair to a turnbuckle? Why isn't anybody using what she brings to the ring as a weapon against her? Why has no heel tied her to anything with that? She's got like 8 foot of rope sticking out of her head. I mean, if this was 20 years ago, back in Taker's favorite day, she'd have been tied to the back of a car. No, I would.
Yeah, or they'd use it like the old school
female wrestler. Wasn't.
Yeah, but the old school strangling technique with the hidden headlock. Where you could wrap it around the neck and cover it with the headlock type of thing. You know what I mean? And just keep them.
Do you remember the turnbuckles used to have a length of rope?
Yeah, and they'd wrap it around them.
Do you remember the tag matches? You had to hold on to the weight of the rope.
Yeah. What people would say?
Times. It's like the ref can't see that length of cord.
Back in the good old days. I really thought this match was going to be a setup in terms of there would be some sort of a botch finish costing them the match, and then it would lead to maybe Bianca Belair, because they had kind of teased Bianca Belair having to decide what title she was going to go after. So I thought that this match, in the way it would be set up, would be a prime opportunity for a botch finish, and then the two girls kind of go at each other at the end, blaming each other to tease a potential title decision. But it was kind
Yeah,
of like, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead. No, I'll talk after. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it was just kind of like, this is what I was expecting to happen. That's why I was taught, that's why they were put together, really, because obviously she was going to go after Sasha's title. You know, there was going to be some sort of botch finish here costing them the match. Either Sasha's
play an odd couple style run.
Yeah, and you know, tease it along for another few weeks, but have them like shove each other in the ring and have to get separated, you know, maybe have, as you said, Jay, earlier with the other match, maybe
Use
a
the
referee
tension.
down.
Yeah,
and build towards it and make it meaningful. But this just seemed like, you know, another tag just throwaway match. Nothing really came out of it, really.
What's the next pay-per-view?
Fastlane.
Yeah, so I was thinking, lucky enough, it came in right when you were talking about that. Look, when I was thinking of that match, like, you obviously back in the day, you had the little the tag matches where she's coming after the title, and you just know there's gonna be a turn where, like you said, if there was a little pushing and shoving at the end, and then every week until Fastlane, and then at Fastlane, then Belair just absolutely annihilates Banks, you know what I mean, and picks up the belt and is like, right, see ya at Mania, I'm gonna rip your head clean off. I thought when Reginald came out, I thought Ting was gonna come out after, what's her fucking face?
Carmella.
Yeah, I thought she was gonna come out and probably screw them over, but like, yeah, it was just like kind of just a clean pin and it's over. Like, you know, that pointless finish. It's like the Reigns and Daniel Bryan, like some sort of ending where you're like, right, this is the start of it. This is going to fester in now for a few weeks, and at Fastlane, then we'll have the decision. She's just going to lay around the ring and hold the belt aloft. But yeah,
I thought it was a complete misuse of a Rumble winner. Complete and utter misuse of her. Like, they barely mentioned that she was the Royal. I think they mentioned it once when she was interviewed backstage. I don't think the commentators mentioned it. You know, it was just, I think it was a complete wasted opportunity. She, you know, they used the Royal Rumble to build her up and to be this new star, you know, and which I think is a great idea. I think she's fantastic, but there's no need for her to be in a very, you know, run of the mill match. I thought was grand, you know, it wasn't a bad match, but it was a run of the mill standard tag, and you've got your Royal Rumble winner in it, supposed to be your star of the future. And you did fuck all with her to get her over. Like, I just thought it was a waste.
She was kind of portrayed nearly as the lesser of the four, wasn't she?
In a lot of ways, because I think that's because she's, you know, she came up from NXT, you know, even though it's pretty, a lot of people consider
there could be a long play tactic there.
But you can't have a long play tactic, Jay. No, I don't think you can't, Jay. When you have a Royal Rumble winner that only a couple of months later is going to main event WrestleMania, you can't play the long. You have to get her over very quickly in that amount of time. You know, especially if she's
but the fact that she went over the other 29 women, like the fact that she went over, they're obviously hot on her. I mean, she went over Ripley, which the world is telling the company, there's your next fucking star player. And the company already knows, because this is their business. This is their bread and butter. It's like, don't worry about her. She can be fucking grand. She's going to be superstar whenever she needs to. That's an ace in the hole. We can just play her whenever we want. You sit over there. We're going to use how great you are naturally, because we all know it, to put other women over. And she did. She, you know, Bianca came out looking like roses at the end of that Rumble. And I was happy. She made me happy at the end of it. That was my favorite match in the Rumble. I have to admit, the girls, I think, knocked it out of the fucking park. But at that same time as well, like you said, when she's in there with three other women, one who's you know, Baszler is a powerhouse. You believe she could legitimately just beat the shit out of half the roster, men included. Nia Jax has beat the shit out of half the roster unintentionally. You've got fucking Banks, who's so hard over. And even more so now that Snoop Dogg did that shitty fucking move off a turnbuckle in AEW, they're using her as, you know, she'll never not be a star in the company. You've almost got, you're right in what you're saying. You're right that she wasn't pushed as hard or vocally from the commentary box, but that leads me to believe maybe it's kind of a let the post-Rumble heat die down, so that when whatever does happen is going to happen, it's out of the blue, as opposed to the company hard grooming us to get used to the idea that she's gone over hard at some stage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Where it'll actually be a shock rather than everyone sees it. You know, they foreshadow the shit out of it like they did with the second Elimination Chamber match. The foreshadowing for that was fucking disgusting. So I know what you mean there. Like,
do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's subtle. Sometimes it's, if you want the star to be a star, long-term star, not just some kind of interim player. And the women's division, there's a slow cook there. I think they've realised that their demographic now it's like Xbox. Everybody's wondering why are there so many female characters being shoehorned into games. It's because the demographic says that 50 to 60% of gamers now are female. Yeah, I think the demographics coming in off wrestling now is like more women are watching than ever before. So we don't need flash in the pan stars anymore. That's no good to us. What we need to do is groom lifers, long-termers. Whereas before it was let's throw a belt on her for a year, make her great, then she'll go off to become a bikini model back to wherever we got her from, and we'll just chop and change every 4 years or 3 years with a beautiful new set of women. I think now they're trying to build long-term life for fucking superstars, and you can't do that with the comedy box telling you all the time, she's going to be the best, 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 because then you're like, well, that's just the boss telling me who he thinks is going to be the best, and I have to believe it anyway. There could be a little subtlety in her, which I'd love to see, because
but WWE, let's be honest, WWE aren't known for their subtlety now, Jay.
Yeah, they wouldn't be the most.
Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. It depends, again, perspective. Like, I mean, we thought that the yes movement was going to go over hard, and they kept on whipping it away from us until, you know, to the point where you're watching Sheamus Bro kick a fella in the face after 17 seconds, and he was so hard and hot over that it was almost painful. But they do that with us. They toy with us. They tease us.
Yeah. Right. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Raw Elimination Chamber, and we're going to have plenty to talk about on that. Welcome back to the Four Podmen. And again, now we're going to be looking at the final chamber match in the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. This is the Raw chamber match, I believe. Where do we start with this one, Joe? Break this one down for me.
Well, I'm gonna start at the start with the Miz foreshadowing. Like they had him talking to MVP in the back with the briefcase smack out in front, and just in case you fucking forgot. And then even in the hype package for the Elimination Chamber, Miz was shoehorned in about being the Money in the Bank winner, and you're like, Jesus Christ! Like, as I said to you, as I said earlier about WWE being subtle, they were just punching in the face with this. You're like, well, he's definitely turning up at some stage. Whether he hands in the briefcase or not is a different story. But he's definitely appearing at the end of this and winding someone up. Like, I just thought it was completely and utterly unnecessary.
Definitely.
Not for me. I skipped the bullshit between bells.
Well, yeah. Well, you would have been better off, because then you didn't see this crap. You know. Now the hype package.
I didn't. I was surprised.
Yeah. You know, like if they had just the MVP Miz bit, that would have been fine. But to shoehorn him in at the end, and it was at the end of the hype package as well, just before the first entrant into the Elimination Chamber. It was just like, for fuck's sake, like, relax. You don't need to tell us exactly that what's going to happen, for fuck's sake. I thought that was ridiculous.
I'm surprised between every pinfalls. The camera just didn't go backstage. He's like that, sitting in the room with the briefcase. Fuck,
just in case you forgot about him.
It's almost, they were trying to, like, not that fucking they wanted you to believe 100,000,000% he was going to come out at the end, and he didn't, and you were going to be sitting there like, fuck, where's the Miz? I thought the Miz was coming out. It was like, really? Fuck's sake, how long I just run down to the bookies and stick every penny I have in the bank on Miz winning the fucking world title, because it's happening tonight.
Straight onto your Paddy Power account.
Fucking hell. What do you mean you're not taking every penny of my life savings on the Miz winning the world title tonight? It's fucking happening.
Go ahead, Joe. Keep on going with it then. Let's get into the match.
Yeah, so you go into the match then, and once again, like the other one, it was solid enough. It was fine. It wasn't like it didn't do anything. Once again, there was nothing special about it. There was no big moment. As I said, solid. Like, you look at the guys that were in it, it was always going to be a decent match. You know, it was never going to be terrible. Like, started off with Orton and Hardy, I think, wasn't it? Is that right? Is that how it started?
Yeah.
I think it was Orton and Hardy, and then McIntyre came in and that kind of guy. Like, the only thing in it that was anyway different was your man Namas ripping the fucking plexiglass off so AJ could jump out and run around, and he had that bit of a face off with Randy. And but the only thing what I couldn't understand about him ripping that thing off was he could have opened the door. Wasn't it just a lever he had to take off and just slide it out and let him out? It was a bit of a but you know, then AJ goes in and, you know, tries to pin them. I thought that was a real dickish move, like, you know, where he saw the RKO being hitting the two lads and he ran in. But that was, other than that, like, as I said, it was solid enough. There was nothing wrong with it, but nothing terribly exciting about it.
Solid but forgettable.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. Like, but one thing I will point out is, you know, when they do the superplex, right? And then, but, you know, a fella comes in and power bombs the
Tower of Doom.
Pardon?
The Tower of Doom.
Yeah, exactly. I have never understood why the lad or lads at the bottom of it sell after it's done. And they did it again in that. AJ Styles and Jeff Hardy sold that they were in bits afterwards. You're like, you didn't take any impact, lads. You just threw the other two on the deck. You know,
you should be standing on the top row with your lad out flexing like that was me. Oh, me.
Yeah, or run over and try and pin them. You know what I mean? Just something. I've never understood that. I have to say, the mid-air Claymore to AJ Styles was beautiful.
That was as good as the RKO on Rollins when he went for the curb stomp and he was like, "Not tonight, son." Boom.
Yeah.
That was gorgeous.
Yeah,
that was poetry.
Yeah, that was actually, like I said, solid match, but nothing to write home about.
The only thing that surprised me in that match, you knew Drew was gonna keep the belt. There was some good spins in the match, but I was surprised with Orton going out so clean. I know it was kind of like it's lost. You get pinned clean, and you come in with your two RKOs on the left. But I was surprised that there was no blackout or the red light kind of feeding in the pin or something there to start heating that up again. Maybe that, like, Roy was shy away from that for a bit longer, kind of let that build up. But I was surprised with Orton that there was no the screens all going Alexa Bliss's face or maybe the melted mask of the Fiend or something. But it was a solid match. We agree with everything Joe said, though.
I had a very different view on this match. You were obviously watching a very different match to the match I was watching.
Bombshell tonight.
I'm gonna go in hard on this. This one broke my heart, let's say. Unlike the first match was, you know, a little build of wrestling in the ring before going to the structure to use it as, you know, this hellish structure that, like, ends careers and all this kind of thing. These lads straight away went to the structure. The ring may as well have not even been there. It was irrelevant, which I thought was kind of weird. Like, build me towards that, you know. Like, it's like when we talk about every fight starts with two men standing up. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, bring me on a little bit of a journey. You know what I mean? The one thing that I mentioned earlier on this was, I hadn't got a clue who the baby faces and the heels were. So I was kind of confused all the way through the match. Like, if you think about it, there's Drew McIntyre. They've been building this guy up for a year as the face of the company. And he comes out and beats the living shit out of Jeff Hardy heel style. He absolutely pulverized him off every inch of the chamber. And I'm thinking, okay, now I'm really confused. You know?
Could he not have done that to AJ or something? It was like the fucking Hunger Games.
Yeah. And then I was like, I got onto Orton then. So Orton gets pinned, and after getting pinned, it was obviously irrelevant because he jumps up and just RKOs two guys. So, like, that made that pin kind of meaningless. Then you have Omos, who's ripping this Perspex wall off the side of the pod, when clearly in the first match, the wall just popped out of the pod on its own. So he was looking for his Kane moment where Kane came down and ripped the cage door off the cage. and it just came across crap. It was just terrible, you know.
Yeah, the middle dragged out.
Then you have the commentators who keep on pushing this narrative of Sheamus and Drew, this stare down. And the commentators are all over it. They're just talking about the history these men have had and all this sort of thing. And then within seconds, it falls flat on its face. It's kind of irrelevant. It seems to not happen. And then my boy Lashley shows up, and I'm thinking, even though I had copped the kind of Miz earlier in the vignettes, if you like, Lashley shows up, and I'm thinking, here's the payback for dropping the US title to Riddle. And I'm going, this is how this normally happens. And then Miz cashes in, and Lashley is just there, and it's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? It's like, what was the whole point of this?
That bothered me. If I was Lashley in rage, you'd have smashed the Miz up as well. Like, it is a fuck you as well. Fuck your bleeding briefcase. You stole it from Otis. I'm going to take it from you, you cunt.
You know who Miz reminds me of in this whole thing, because we know going to be Drew and Bobby and it's before. You just hold that belt and we're going to take it off you in about 23 we'll give you about 2 minutes. We're going to absolutely humiliate you, but you're going to go home with your beautiful wife and your kids and all. But you're going to be the Bob Backlund of 2021.
Can you spell transition?
And remember, Joe, you're going to come in here, and I know you are, but like when you're experiencing this pay-per-view, you don't have the benefit of the foresight of saying Raw. So you're in the moment of the pay-per-view, you know. But go ahead, Joe. What are you gonna?
No, just when Jay was saying there, if you were Bobby Lashley, you'd bet the piss out of him. But a thinking man would look at McIntyre and look at Miz and go, which one of these two is going to be easier to beat? Right, let him win the title, and I'll bait the piss out of him later and take it off him. That's what I'd say. That was, that's the way I looked at it anyway. Is that Lashley would be like, well, he's going to be an awful lot easier to beat than that other bigger fella, so I'll do that.
Yeah, I would accept that, except Edge sat back and let Daniel Bryan get the piss bet out of him. And then he came in and speared Reigns. When what he should have done, he should have come in and helped him beat down Reigns when he had him in the yes lock. If that theory carries full circle, if you like.
That would have been a highlight. That could have been an excellent way to finish the fucking card, right? Just have Miz cash in his money in the bank, then have Edge run down and beat the piss out of Miz, not for a fucking ding ding. Then have Bobby Lashley run down and beat the piss out of Miz and the Edge, and throw in Roman Reigns and have all 5 or 6 of them beating the piss out of each other and just fade off. Just fade off. It's like, why is everybody bashing each other? Doesn't matter. We don't care. You're millennials. Get it into you.
The boys are walking on the stage, and the EastEnders music hits.
always
Christmas Eve episode.
Listen,
everybody's dead.
We always loved the attitude there, because at the end of a show there was always a run in or something, and it always left us hanging. So that's why we came back next week. We always wanted
Fade the black. Yeah. Fade the black with them all beating the piss out of each other, and leave the next week's episodes of Raw and SmackDown to unravel this fucking heap, this molten heap of flesh, of gold and fucking brawn. Just we don't know who hates who. Everybody's great though, because we have no audience. Do.
You'll be continued.
Yeah, let them beat the piss out of each other. It's fucking wrestling, like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Oh wait, that's the Rumble, isn't it?
But when I saw Lashley come down and bait the piss out of McIntyre, the first thing that popped into my head was like, oh, they're rehashing some old TNA stuff here. Which is true.
And then they didn't.
What the whole show felt to me like, just on a hindsight, now that we've got to the end of the show and we know we've seen the Money in the Bank show, it felt like it was more of a talent flex from the company projecting to the rest of the world than a card for the fans in the seats. It was like, we've got a competent, brilliant mid card of fucking wrestlers in the first Elimination Chamber, who can go all day long and entertain you. And then we've also got this series of fucking top flight contenders as well in the second Elimination Chamber, who can also fucking go. The fact that Randy Orton was out so quick, it was always like Randy had called up the boss mid-match and gone, I carried this company for the last fucking year. I carried it for the COVID year. Can I have another soft 6 months, please, boss? Yeah, Randy, sure, whatever. Take your pin and get the fuck out. We'll leave it to the boys. And they had certain angles. Like, I would love to see strongman versus strongman in the Sheamus and fucking Drew situation. I love the fact that they used essentially the Claymore and the Bro kick. It's just like big boot to the mouth versus big boot to the mouth. Like there's a flex there they could use where it's kind of like if they have one of those classic matches where, you know, 2 men punch at the same time and fists meet, 2 men kick at the same time and fist meet. It's like, oh my God, we're mirror reflections of each other. Only I stayed and did the job and you were kicked out and had to go tour the world and reach for the brass ring and different paychecks. If they elevated that to the point where, but then again, there's fucking pro wrestling and the psychology. Like we just seen Drew beat the piss out of fucking Goldberg recently. I mean, I didn't think they could get a man any more over than just smashing through Goldberg in that Rumble match. And then we've got the Miz smashing him up after a gauntlet situation.
I do think that McIntyre, with the fans back here, I do think he'll win the title at Mania and he'll have that fans moment that he didn't get last year. So they could be looking at that, you know what I mean? Like, just kind of fuck him over for now and let that simmer. But there's talk of Brock coming back as well. Like, the money is being offered to him and all. Like, he's obviously going to come into the equation for WrestleMania. And you're thinking to yourself, what about Lashley versus Drew versus Brock? Drew comes.
Well, I'd love to see Lashley and Lesnar, to be honest. As I said, there's genuine animosity between the two of them. They're both, as I said, both former MMA fighters. And they've had spats on Twitter over who would bait the piss out of who and all that kind of crack. And
I think the worry with that is, Joe, though, if Lesnar comes into that building on night of WrestleMania against Lashley, he comes into that building in bad humor, that's gonna turn 100% real, 100% fucking fast.
Yeah, but like, you know, I understand that is probably, I'm sure that is a genuine concern. But if there's a fella in the locker room that would be able to look after himself, if that started happening, it probably is Lashley, like, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that
all day long.
Might be a risk worth taking, you know what I mean? But, you know, I don't know.
That's a money fight. That's a money fight. I know, like, over the years, you've seen a lot of them, but with what that other company are thinking of doing with that Japanese crew, what they're thinking of doing, like, if they announced that it was Lashley against fucking Lesnar at WrestleMania, where are you going to tune in? The real wrestling fan's going to want to watch that fight and see 2 big-ass motherfuckers kicking every shade of shit over each other. Then Kenny, the other guy, coming out and doing all this and fucking pointing at stars and all. Do you know what I mean?
Don't kick Jay off there again when he starts talking about AEW. We had that last week. The amount of chat we had about Kenny Omega last week. I mean, I suppose the fact of the matter, I mean, those boys are competing with NXT. They're not really competing with WrestleMania and the real roster when you think about it.
No, they're not. I mean, the dust has settled on that. The shit is in. This is what I'm saying about. I don't think this card. I don't think that event was a flex for the fans. I think it was a global flex for professional wrestling. It's like we have in 2 different cages and 2 different matches on one event. We had 12 men who could carry several years worth of fucking, you know, spliced feuding. We're in good position. We are not in the business of demographics on telly anymore because we pioneered the personal network. We have our own fucking TV show. Everybody else is fighting for crumbs on the table. We've got our own place to sell our own product. We sell our shit for 3 years to another company for $5 fucking billion or $3 billion or whatever the fuck it was. We're not talking about competing with AEW. There's no competition, we allow a certain amount of competition. And the whole show, like I said earlier on, it felt like a flex. There were two very enjoyable cage matches for me personally, because I don't watch the weekly shows. I've too much sleeping to be doing during the week to be watching pro wrestling. I don't want to watch 40 minutes of wrestling and 2.5 hours of fucking people talking to each other, looking at fucking silly shit. But as a pay-per-view, it felt like, yeah, we're not worried about AEW. Have you seen our roster? And when we let them go, have you seen what they can do with each other? It's a pro wrestling company we run. We've run it successfully for about 40 fucking years now. We're all right. Don't be worrying about us, because we're not worried about you. You know? And that's what it felt like.
Yeah, there's times I look at it and you know, one of the things that kind of irks me about the Elimination Chamber as a pay-per-view is there's times when there's a bit of blood to be needed. And I find it very frustrating. And, you know, I'm not a huge hardcore fan or anything like that. You know, I don't like to see lads, you know, looking like something out of Friday.
Each other.
Yeah, but isn't there times in a match like this, like the Elimination Chamber, I mean, to cement the theory that it's, you know, the hellish structure that it is and that it costs men their careers and all that, does it not call for a little bit of colour at certain times? I know, like, we have the age thing, and, you know, but
yeah,
I just, you
that's
know,
some of the softest chain link I've ever seen in use in my life. You can mash a man's head into a chain for fucking 5 or 6 bumps.
Yeah, like you look at the beat down that Drew gave Jeff Hardy. You know what I mean, and literally puts his head literally through the pod, if you like. You know what I mean, and literally through the wall of the chamber or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Is there not a point and a certain point that where you have to kind of solidify the selling of it by saying, you know, draw a little bit of color, and even if they have to kind of like shadow it out, at least it gives the impression that it has happened. You know, I just find it weird that you can have these two big cage structures. I mean, what's the point of a cage match if there isn't going to be a larger element of brutality in it, as opposed to, you know, just lads getting their little bit in and the back and forth between your dance partners and, you know, your Tower of Doom and all that kind of stuff that, like, happens kind of on a regular basis. But if you're going to go into a chamber, by definition of a chamber, does the match not call for a little bit more outward thinking in terms of selling the actual magnitude of the match?
Draw straws, like, there's surely someone's willing to take an extra 50k in the bank account to come out looking like cousin fucking Cletus with half the front teeth missing. Do you know what I mean? That's what we miss. That's why fans like ourselves miss the attitude there. The kids nowadays,
I don't.
No, but I know what you,
I missed the golden era.
I know what you mean there, Niall. You know, it doesn't. I know you talked about that. You're not a hardcore fan. There's nothing to do with hardcore. It has everything to do with storytelling. And every now and then, if a fella bleeds, it just adds to the drama. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to piss blood all over the place, like Eddie Guerrero against JBL that time when JBL actually thought he was going to die.
Or like when Stone Cold nearly bled to death against Hart.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But every now and then, it just adds to the drama to just have that bit of clarity, and where people just go, Jesus, this is actually it. And especially now, because they never use it now. It would actually make people go, whoa, shit, this is.
Well, I think there's going to be. There is going to be a slow escalation back to that. They promise us, you know, okay, we're in the PG era, and then 2, it's like, we're out of the PG era now, but shit's still real PG, even though this show goes out long after your fucking kids should be in bed, you bad parent pieces of shit. Like, make your fucking mind up. Like, I mean, no kids sitting around at 11:30 waiting on their favorite wrestlers when they should be in fucking bed.
Let's put it on at 9 in the morning after the cartoons finish.
Yeah. Oh, hey, look, people are getting spike pile drived here. Whoa, this is wholesome as fuck. Yeah. Why? Because nobody's bleeding.
You see this video, things to do, things not to try and all. Kids going into school. Look what I seen this morning. Parallel to the fucking table.
Now, in fairness, they used to did say, look, there is a conscientious objection to it. I mean, they used to say regularly, don't try this at home. But I've taken at least 2 DDTs on the concrete as a child. And I know for that, it was one of the very early experiences of pro wrestling on the street where I learned personally as a human, even at the age of 8, it can't be real because I know what happened to me out there on the fucking footpath. Do you know what I mean? I haven't been able to breathe properly.
No, I just think, you know, there's certain
real to him, damn it.
But there's certain times in the calendar, you know, where it kind of calls for a little bit of that extra bit of storytelling. You know, the Chamber would be one of them. Like Hell in a Cell would be one of them. You know, what I mean, like if you're not going to give us a little bit of that, and again, as I said, it rarely appeals to me. But sometimes there's matches there where it calls for a little bit of it, just to raise the magnitude of the structure of the match, of, you know, the magnitude of it. That like this, you know, like if you're gonna like beat the piss out of a guy in the Chamber, and he's gonna look practically the same as when he strolled in for his entrance, you're not selling me this hellish structure that has ended men's careers. You're really not. Like,
this isn't a Punjabi death match, god damn it.
Yeah, and like, you know, you've got one lad folding a perspex side off a pod like it's a piece of A4 paper, and another lad who's knocking the wall out of a pod by doing nothing. It just falls out on its own. You know, it's kind of like.
I'm going to add to that as well. One thing that bothered me is how taut and rigid the fucking cage structure was. The cage of it, I would have liked a little slack in it, even if you're running somebody into it, and the structure just, it doesn't need to be much. It can be as forgiving as it is the way it is right now. I mean, they were cleaning up it like it was a brick fucking wall or a monkey cage or a monkey bar.
The steel cage back in the day, you used to get whipped into it and the thing would belly out almost as if you were going to go into the fucking crowd and then you'd bounce back. But even that, what Jay's saying there, like how rigid it is, with that being so rigid, you're still not getting any colour off people. Do you know what I mean? You're looking at that being that rigid, you're thinking, he gets whipped into that and gets caught, the back of his elbow, the side of his head or something, that's going to rip your ear clean off, but like still nothing.
Well, I always say the purpose of a match like that, like a Chamber or a Hell in a Cell match, the purpose of that is to use the cell or the Chamber as a weapon.
As a weapon, yes, as a foreign object, no holds barred, fucking no ref in the ring. Why would you need a ref in other matches if a ref in a ring with a structure that is a 22 million ton weapon, you know, I mean, the 7-member in the Elimination Chamber is the Chamber. Yeah. Why isn't it doing anything?
Yeah. So that's, I mean, that's, you know, that's the one thing I looked at it. It kind of like, it makes the match and the structure look weak in terms of its purpose. I already touched on almost how he was looking for his Kane ripping the door off the cell moment, but it didn't happen. The other thing that kind of irked me on it as well is in the middle of the entrances, they were dropping vignettes. And I thought that kind of killed a bit of momentum in the match in terms of like, you know, 2 guys would enter and then they send you on a blower for these vignettes. And then you come back in for ads and stuff like that. And then you come back into the match and it's another entrance and stuff like that. And I just thought it diluted, if you like, you know, it was like you had to keep on starting again to the start of the match. Which I thought it was like an unnecessary interruption, really, you know.
What you were saying last week, Niall, when you were doing the review of Vengeance Day, was it with NXT?
Yeah.
Like look at the build up for that main event, and then you look at the likes of this, like that. They're taking 2 steps forward, but they're taking 20 steps back at a time, and you're thinking to yourself, we all watched NXT, that main event, and you're thinking everything was old school. It was like the build up to Brett and Shawn at Mania when Shawn won his, like the whole like that little rumbling before the entrances and all. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, this is like the fucking Price is Right. Do you know what I mean? Sticking that in there.
Yeah, I think it's the problem as well. I think a bit with their programming as well. It's very hard for any show to follow one of those NXT takeovers, because they set the bar so high in terms of being a wrestling fan. If you go back and you look at, say, Balor versus Pete Dunne, and then you transport yourself back into the bigger pay-per-view, if you like, the Elimination Chamber, those guys have really, in terms of work, they have a lot to deliver on the back of something like that gets such high praise. And again, that's why I say, you know, like, you know, because it's a gimmick match and it's a chamber and stuff like that, use the chamber as a, you know, a weapon, as an object, whatever you want to call it. But then, you know, follow
Fucking
it.
foreign object.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
But follow it through. You know what I mean? Like, give me what I need to tell me that it is what it is. So
as I said, you know, sorry.
Go ahead, Joe.
As I said, you know, sorry. As I said, you know, it's not even a hardcore thing. It's a story, as you said, it's a story thing. It'll make you go, shit, you know, maybe this cage is fucking legit. You know, but when everyone's bouncing off it, and as you said, they're walking out as the same way as they walked in, you know, like you don't need all 6 lads to be fucking busted open and pissing all over the place. Like,
No.
But, you know, just once in a blue moon, just have a fella busted. And people will just go, fuck. You know, they will take a step back. Like.
But there's even subtle little things you could have done. Like, I mean, we've seen Amos, and we're just going to call him Amos because I don't understand how to say that other name. Amos.
A moose.
You know what I mean? Instead of pulling off plexiglass, what they should have done was fucking gimmicked a sheet of sugar glass and just have him rage up and fucking pop it. And then it would have lent a little credence to anybody slamming anybody else in the other piece of glass. We've got this giant putting a fucking sheet of fucking glass through his hand. It shatters like bus stop glass. We've all seen broken bus stop glass in Dublin, lads. Have a shatter like a motherfucker. Get his fist bloody. Let us know. Oh, okay, maybe the pods aren't perspex sheets, which can just be torn down like crepe paper. And then even that will lend a little credence. He's walking up, getting taken away from fucking by Paddy Pierce. Fucking, yeah, you get out. Go on. I'll allow everything else that's happening on this card, but you're not allowed to pull off a piece of plexi. You know what I mean? It would have sold a little something. Just have him walking out with a bloody fucking fist after Superman and through a fucking sheet of glass to get fucking AJ, who did nothing with it, by the way, just walked around the corner and looked. That bothered me as well. It's like, Randy's getting kicked out and you're standing there with your tail between your legs looking at him like he's going to smash you. You're AJ fucking Styles. Don't look at him like he's the beast. He's even his little stone cold fucking hoodie, his little jacket coming down. It's like, what the fuck are you doing looking at him for? Smash him up, he's on the way out. It's not like he's going to pin you. Then get into the ring and fuck up 2 other men.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was just, I think that almost thing, are they purposely just trying to crowbar him in there? It doesn't seem to sit well with AJ. And like, we spoke about him already as well at the Rumble, where he kind of
values AJ's competence as a professional wrestler and a man at the peak of his career.
But he seems to outstay his welcome a bit, if you like, doesn't he?
It's like the early days of Diesel with Sean. He just hovers around the background. Like, if he's gonna do something, he's gonna do something by now. Yeah, it's just getting dragged out now.
We touched on it, I think, when we reviewed the Rumble as well. That part he played in the Rumble, he was just dragging guys out needlessly, you know what I mean, just to make himself relevant. And he kind of like, by trying to make himself so relevant.
With Sid fucking Justice that time when he fucked him up, that piece of gelatinous piss. Right? Hark back to the show I fucking missed, you pieces of shit. Where are my boys? Sorry, forgive me.
Brilliant. But yeah, I suppose that sums up the Elimination Chamber, really, doesn't it? In a nutshell, it was kind of, to me, it was kind of like.
What you're trying to say is you didn't enjoy it, Niall.
It was just kind of such a collection of irrelevance.
I originally enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was kind of a collection of irrelevance, really, that didn't really answer a whole lot of questions, really. That's how I felt about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was one of those things. It was fine. You know, it was.
They just wanted to pass time until the Miz cashed in.
Yeah.
But isn't that the thing, Joe? Shouldn't it be so much more?
Oh yeah, Jesus Christ!
You know what I mean?
Especially when you come off a fantastic Royal Rumble pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Especially the women's Royal Rumble was unbelievable. So you come off a very good Royal Rumble pay-per-view, as you said, the Takeover pay-per-view as well, and then you come into this, and it's just what? And like, you know, you look at the names that were there; they're fucking great. No, it's just like no one's going to talk about this. You know, it's just going to be another one of those pay-per-views that was there and it's done. And
Yeah, well,
it was sandwiched in between, you know, the Royal Rumble and Mania, the two big ones. They have another one they're going to fucking sandwich in 2 or 3 weeks before Mania again. What the fuck are they going to do with that? It's just they're just a I can't even talk.
I think traditionally the roadmap to Mania had a lot more meaning, and now they have no more. You can't sell DVDs anymore because they have a network. So now the validity of the structured match, like Elimination Chambers, I mean, they probably paid like, you know, £500,000 for a couple of fucking people to throw that thing together. And like, well, we need to use them every year. Okay, we'll do it once a year. But like I said earlier, we'll use it as a talent flex as opposed to a wrestling flex. We'll show the world what we have. We won't let anything be done conclusively going into the road to Mania. We'll use it to tie up a few loose ends, let the world see we still have a lot of great performers here. You're not watching fucking any dirty, dingy AEW silly shit. We'll let them do their thing. We'll get some new storylines out of it. And then we'll proceed to Raw and SmackDown the next week, and everybody's going to forget about it. Why? Because nobody buys box set DVDs of specific things. Like, ain't nobody going to rush out to buy a triple disc Elimination Chamber DVD bundle now. You can just see them all on the network for $10 a month. So it's kind of devalued its status somewhat.
Better cancel that order I just made for a triple box set.
Well, you know what? I think you should maybe leave that order in. You know, you look like a man who needs easily entertained.
Well, Jay, just Jay, on that point you made about, you know, that to further storylines and that, I don't think they did it with this, except at the very end. You know what I mean? As I said, they could have. They could have, absolutely. Especially when Daniel Bryan won, they killed that straight away. 2 minutes after it happened, they did nothing then with the women. You had a champ and a Royal Rumble winner in the same match. They did nothing to push that.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, then at the end they did a bit to push something. But I think Dean might be right. He's holding on to that until maybe just before WrestleMania or at WrestleMania. No further than WrestleMania, I don't think.
Yeah. No, I agree.
They didn't do a whole lot. And then, as I said, what the fuck are they going to do with another one in between now and then? Except maybe
they're probably going to try and fix what they got wrong with this one.
No, I reckon the next pay-per-view is actually going to be like an episode of EastEnders. You'll have fucking group of lads down the pub talking about my fucking hate me missus. And then you'll have the women, you'll have the 4 women out of the tag team match driving down the street, bitching about, I don't want to break up, someone crying about wanting to break up the fella, and you're just thinking, just let everyone wishes Mania was next. Realistically, everyone wishes Mania was next. It's just fast lane with no fans. It's just the same thing week in, week out. It's just like, let's just fucking, can we all just take a sleeping pill and wake up today of Mania?
Well, I think again, we do have a serious hangover when it comes to pay-per-views. We've got used to this format of 12 a year, once a month. Yeah. And it's unnecessary when you've got 3 programs running near fucking 3 hours a piece. There's only 4 that still matter.
Yeah.
And I think WWE have really backed themselves into a corner with all these pay-per-views where they have to do something for them.
Yeah. Why don't they have an NXT show once a month? Because like that'll fucking watch that shit.
Yeah, but I think if they do that, they'll end up doing what they've done on the so-called main roster. They'll just run it into the ground, and they'll have to make up shit on the fly, throw matches together for no reason, and all this kind of crack. Because as I said, this pay-per-view didn't do a whole lot. As I said, after a good Royal Rumble, then you have this. As I said, you have another one just before the Mania. I just don't get it. I think
that's the thing. We'd have persevered if it was this, and then we'd a few house shows, and then we'd Mania. It's just you're looking at the end of this show. Fair enough, it was a good ending, but looking at the end of the Miz and McIntyre, you're scratching your head, and you're like, why is Lashley not just wiped the floor with Miz and just left him stand like just laughing at him walking out of the ring? You're thinking to yourself, like, what? Like, there's absolutely. If we us four were to sit here now and think of what's next, we could sit here for 3 or 4 hours and we can't think of what's next for Fastlane because there's nothing to do next.
I don't even know what Fastlane is.
It's a pay-per-view before Mania, which makes no fucking sense. Like, there's no need for 2 pay-per-views between Rumble and Mania. There's just
they could have pushed Elimination Chamber out 3 or 4 weeks and let it build a bit of heat, and then
exactly, and made it a bigger deal and have it the last one before Mania. Like
maybe in 3 or 4 weeks you would have had that bit of heat at the end of the women's tag team match. You would have had Lashley wiping the floor with Miz and standing over him with the belt with the foot on his head or something, laughing in his face. This was all too rushed.
Well, yeah, and oddly enough, there is something that can be done between Rumble and Mania, which would make sense in the professional landscape. They could have one pay-per-view where one company comes up and is on a level footing with the other two. They could have Next versus Raw versus SmackDown and allow more fucking underdogs, just like a wild card night, kind of a all bets are off, everybody into the ring. Have cards where you have the
dream card. Realistically, have a dream card.
Yeah. Kind of like a let's get rid of the Mania or the Rumble hangover. We'll go out. You have to do the Elimination Chamber because there's way too much scrap involved in getting rid of that particular structure. The way it raises and lowers down. Somebody has a serious hard-on for how it was built, and it's a centerpiece. And the fact that these men work week in, week out, 2 and 3 shows a fucking week. It's the ring. It's the structure that is the pay-per-view. And to be perfectly honest, it could be used and utilized a lot more. But on a 12-card event a year, that's grand. That's grand after Mania. But you could have a wild card event where it's just kind of SmackDown versus Raw versus NXT, and you could do almost like an old Survivor Series, the way they used to do it versus SmackDown versus Raw, but without the fucking gansies and t-shirts and wearing the blue and the red.
With no fans being around for almost a year now, like that could have just been a treat to the fans who fucking stuck by them. But no one's really going to step away from WWE, but they could have turned around. They've had, 9, 10, 11 months to think about this. They could have, Jay's 100% right there. It's only when he says it, you think, you know what, they could have put something together where this is just before the fans come back from Mania. There's a treat for the fans. We get Elimination Chamber out of the way. Everyone's an idea of what way Mania is going. But here's just a show out of the blue. Dream matches, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Tuesday.
Yeah, a novelty once off, like, it wouldn't have been a bad idea. Yeah.
Let me put it this way. Who wouldn't like to see the finale of the main event of all bets are on, but all bets are off? SmackDown Raw versus fucking NXT champs. I mean, we know Finn now. We understand now. We always thought Finn was demoted. It's very clear that he was sent down to lend the card and the roster credibility, teach them how to work, teach them how to wrestle, just throw his experience on the fucking table. All of the shit he's doing down there is fucking pro wrestling 101.
I wouldn't mind seeing him against Shinsuke, old school style, taking the fuck out of each other for an hour. You know what I mean?
Well, unfortunately, with that belt round his waist, it won't happen. If I was to have a wild card night, I'd have champ versus champ versus champ. Night of champions. A night of 3 ways. Do you know what I mean? And then all of the belts from all of the fucking companies in one night. We'll call it the fucking night of gold or the bleeding the gold rush. Just all a night of pro wrestling. Just all bets are off. This is their way of saying thank you. These men can fucking work. They're consummate professionals. Have your tag champs from NXT versus your tag champs from the other two. Have your ladies get in there.
Right at the end of it, you have the Undertaker goes out and goes, SAW.
Come out with 2 357s and just clear the fucking arena.
You're nearly looking for, like, you know, to send you into Mania. You're nearly looking for nearly like a Raw and a SmackDown takeover. aren't you? That's
Yeah,
kind of
a
really
night
what
of
you
champions.
yeah, like an NXT takeover kind of format kind of thing, but for Raw and for SmackDown. And that will send you, that'll give you like 2 solid cards or whatever it is that sends you right up into Mania on a very positive note, you know?
It also gives you the perfect swerve. The way in pro boxing and fucking UFC, they'll allow men to fight 2 or 3 times. I mean, if I'm the fucking NXT champ and you're the Raw champ and you're the SmackDown champ and we get into the ring and mix it up, I get to go back. I don't need to win that night on the all bets are off night. I don't need to win, but I've got a feel for you now. And maybe the next time I will win because you won't get over me the way you got over me that last time. I'm smarter than you. And then you can totally throw several swerve balls any way you want.
Yeah, and the thing is that they already have a pay-per-view with that name, which is Clash of Champions. You know, where they could literally just use, which they already have it. You know, where it's, but as I said, I get annoyed because there is no need to have such a congested pay-per-view schedule between Rumble and Mania. It just makes no sense to me. Like, it's throwaway. Like, as I said, half of what was on and that pay-per-view was just throwaway. Fastlane is probably going to be even worse for throwaway. And you know,
Fastlane is just a Raw and a SmackDown with a fancy dress name. I mean, what is a Fastlane? What is that? What's you'd be better off, and as a wrestling terminology, calling the thing fucking hard shoulder. I mean, cars ain't moving, but you know what? It hurts.
Safe to say, none of us be watching it fucking live anyway.
Absolutely not. I'm going to sit up this Sunday and watch Hard Fast. Why? I don't know.
Well,
I'm lonely.
it's a lot of cramming. It's a lot of cramming in for a roster that's so soft as well. Like, just preface that, you know.
Like watching a fucking Fastlane's gonna be like a fucking Hollyoaks omnibus.
You're dropping all the shows tonight, aren't you? You're dropping all the shows.
The missus is 6 months pregnant. I have to watch all this with her.
What the hell is Hollyoaks?
You were watching that shit before you met her. Would you stop?
You mean, Dean, that she's 6 months pregnant and can't fight you about wanting to watch them, like, that you wanting to watch them?
Yeah. Also, Dean, she didn't get that way herself, pal. One little biology 101. Biology lane.
Glass.
Well, lads,
cheers.
as always, the Friday nights are always a pleasure and store a bit of controversy. So,
just before we go, I said something before we came live. I felt a bit out of my depth tonight with the Four Podmen. So, as I was saying, I was thinking of an analogy before we went live, and I was saying, right, well, the lads have been doing this a lot longer than me. Usually I stick to the whole Liverpool football podcast, but it's like Niall's like Ric Flair, Ian's like Randy Orton, Joe's like Batista, and Jay's Triple H. The real evolution. I was coming in thinking I was Mark Jindrak, but the lads absolutely class. Loved it tonight.
Yeah,
it's good to have you, Dean, to be honest.
Yeah, it's good to have you on.
You were a good wild card, son. It was a fucking pleasure.
As always. So, as always, head over to the Dynamo Podcast Network and smash that subscribe button and bell notification. You'll also find us if you prefer the audio and you don't like our beautiful faces. We're on Anchor and we're on Spotify, which is an impossibility, but however, for those people that are kind of a little bit stranger. And as always, support Irish Podcasting and all the other great shows that are on the Dynamo Podcast Network. So, for myself, the shopkeeper, who was the host this week,
he has a gun in his bag. He's very old school. He's very old school. Don't go near him. He's carrying a knife in his sock.
For the road dog, the D-O-double-G. For the beef Joe Duignan. And for Dean Fitz, who stood in this week. Thank you, and we'll catch you next time.